Yeah.
Okay, so we stopped on page 187, I believe.
Yes, we finished to the end of the second paragraph.
Second paragraph, אני רוצה לומר לכם כמה מילים על כיסוי פני כלה.
That's where we're going to begin.
Yeah. Everybody with me? Page 187, about, it's like, beginning of the third paragraph. So he says, I want to tell you something about the covering of the face of the bride. And you know what said לומר דברים רעים? I don't want to say anything bad. אבל נראה לי שברוב החתונות עושים כיסוי פני כלה. It seems to me that in most marriages, the way they do the covering of the kala's face, כלאחר יד, by the way, the Sfarim don't do it at all. They don't have a hinuma.
What's pshat?
I don't know.
Do they do a bedekah?
No, they don't do bedekin. Amen.
That's right. I went to a Sephardi class and we read. The color has the face covered at the beginning.
There's so many different customs. I'm just saying, but I know that like the idea of the chosim going over to do the bedekin, they don't do that as well. So he says, אבל נראה לי שרוב חתונות עושים כיסוי פני כלה כלאחר יד. It seems to me that in most weddings they treat the bedekin as like it's not like כלאחר יד is like sort of like like backhanded. בלא תשומת הלב הראויה, without the proper attention. האם ראיתם איך עושים זאת? Have you ever seen how it's done? כולם אוכלים וכולם מדברים. People are already sitting and eating, and people are talking. ואז שוכבים את החתן, then they schlep the chosin in.
They don't schlep.
I'm translating what it says. They schlep the chosin in, והצלם בדיוק מצלם את הכלה, and the photographer is taking pictures of the bride. האימא שלה מסדרת לה את השמלה, her mother is fixing her dress. ומישהו בא להביא לה קצת lipstick, and somebody comes and brings some more lipstick. ואז באמצע כל זה, in the middle of all this, עושים מהר כיסוי פני כלה, then quickly they go and they cover the kala's face. ורוקדים בלי כוונה, and the dancing is without any intention. The musicians are playing without any kavanah, without any intention. And then they go and they do the chuppah. I was at a wedding here in Israel once, and I couldn't believe it. I was really surprised. People sit down to eat. Like people come in, they right away sit down to eat, even if there's a table of hors d'oeuvres. A lot of people, they just sit down at a regular table, they start eating from salads and so on. And it was at a Sephardi wedding. Somebody's at the door, but somebody started talking. As a matter of fact, when Yisrael's daughter got married, she married a Sephardi fellow. And I've seen it more than once. And I thought to myself, come on, you came to a wedding, you're just sitting down and just eating and this and that. But I got to tell you that when the music started later on for the dancing, and those Sephardi people, and they were singing the song Hashem Melech, Hashem Malach, Hashem Yimloch L'Olam Va'ed. Their intensity. Hashem is the king. Hashem has always been the king. Hashem will always be the king. their intensity and their kavanah in that song beat anything that I've seen at any other wedding. And these are guys like like you'd think they don't even look particularly religious. But Sephardi Jews, and they're so connected. They the Sephardi Jews don't have the same problems with faith like Ashkenazi Jews do. Ashkenazim have Reform and conservative and Orthodox and this and that and that, but it's Sephardim they don't have that. There's no Reform or conservative Judaism. Maybe you're religious, maybe you're not religious, but Judaism is one Judaism,
Oh, I was at a secular meal, and people were on their phones and everything. And then when it came the time to cut the challah, the person started making the bracha. Everyone stopped and said, "There's no salt," and they stopped him in the middle of the bracha to go get the salt. They were mortified that there was no salt.
Yeah. It's amazing. You see that you're looking at there are some things that they're so connected to that Ashkenazim have to learn from them.
Yeah, this was really changing.
So that's what I'm saying is that so I'm sure Reb Shlomo is not talking particularly about a Sephardi Ashkenazi wedding, but you just know that. So what did Reb Shlomo do? He says, Baruch Hashem, thank God, the Chevra that I'm with a little bit deeper, Uzman Kisui Pnei Kala, are more attentive and deeper during the time of the covering of the face of the Kala. And why? And Reb Shlomo was the one who turned things around in this respect. He insisted, that the kisui hakala should be done with appropriate intentions. And he says why? Because because according to our tradition, come here. According to our tradition, the Baruch, right? 187. Sit down. Sit over here. So the children, the future children of the couple are coming to attend the wedding, and they're coming down at the time of the covering of the Kala's face. Okay. I was talking with somebody yesterday, and you work with people who see energies flying around. Yeah.
Work with students.
I'm saying at Naropa it's not so uncommon, right? You work with people who say that they see energies. Yeah, also, you tell them that they're normal. Good. It's
energy of life.
I'm saying somebody says, "Oh, he's got great energy." Yes, but I don't want to talk to them.
There are people who can see the aura.
There are people who can see the aura. That's right. I know. I have no problem with it. But a lot of people have problems with these things. Because it's not. So I'll tell you, the Gemara says, and it's related to this. Afterwards, you'll ask me how. The Gemara says that there are all these negative energies around us all the time. And so when I was still a student, I asked the Mashpia, Reb Wolf Reb Shlomo, I said, how do you explain this? So he said that, he gave an example. Before the invention of the electron microscope, there were already some scientists that were talking about these little microorganisms that are responsible for transferring these. If it was upside down, it's clean. They were already speaking about microorganisms, etc., etc. And in the scientific community, they were considered to be good scientists, but they were considered to be really weird for even thinking of such an idea. Until the electron microscope was invented. Then everybody said, "Oh, yeah, they were right." the idea being that, you know, people like to be empirical, and the empiricists say that if you can't see it and you can't scratch it and you can't smell it, it doesn't exist. So just not being able to see something doesn't mean that it's not there. You know, that there's no technology that they divide seconds even into a trillion parts. Okay? So there was, so he said to me that if you would actually see, hi Xavier, come, there's a seat here. If you would actually be able to see these things, you wouldn't even be able to sit down on your chair because you'd be busy wiping them off your chair the entire time. Okay. Now, there was a young man here a number of years ago, and he had his problem is that he saw these things, and it was very, very difficult for him to function. Like I was talking to him, he'd look up and he said, "Did you just see that?" You know? And the way we normally live our lives, we say such a person is a little bit not normal, right? But it's true, it's not normal. Not too many people can do that. But there are people who can see these things. Or like Michal said, people can see not only your aura, but they can see the color of your aura, etc. So Reb Shlomo was very, very, so when we say over here that the souls of the children, of the future children come to be present during the time of the B'dakin, it's not just like a nice idea that, you know, that's some just a Kabbalistic idea. The people who said this, they knew. They knew. I don't know. I haven't seen it happen. I haven't seen it with my eyes, right? But it is, you know, we've been talking the last few days about the lower point being connected with the supernal point, right? If you're really connected, then you have a sense and an awareness of these things. Look, in honor of our Australian friends here, one day Rabbi Groner in Sydney gets a letter.
Melbourne.
Huh?
Melbourne.
Gets a letter from the Lubavitch Rebbe that, you know, this is years ago. And very nice that you're doing all the work that you're doing in Melbourne, but, you know, there are other communities around there too. And the Rebbe mentioned one place in particular, and saying that, you know, something has to be done for these communities as well. And there are many stories like this, by the way. So Rabbi Brunner gets the letter, and the Rebbe mentioned a certain community. So he figured, okay, that means you better go and visit that community. So he's walking in the street, and this Israeli couple come up to him, and they say, "Oh, wow, you know, we're here in this town. We're academics. They both grew up on a Shomer HaTzair kibbutz, in an anti-religious kibbutz, and they said all our years in Israel, we never felt any need to speak to any rabbi. We didn't even want to speak to a rabbi. But we have a 9-year-old girl, and we were talking like, you know, like what are we going to do for our daughter? Like, you know, we're living in Australia, and what's going to be with her Yiddishkeit, you know? And here you are. We were just talking about that we need to speak to a rabbi just yesterday. Okay? So how did the Rebbe know? How did the Rebbe know that some Jew in some town in Australia is crying for a connection? Okay? So one explanation that I heard was that, by the way, Reb Shlomo was like that also, not on the same scale, but one explanation is that it says you're sleeping at night and it's cold, and you pull the blanket over yourself. Do you have to wake up and analyze why you're cold and say, "Oh, I need to pull the blanket up," or do you just do it instinctually? You do it instinctually, right? Because you're so connected to yourself. You don't need to go and analyze things, right? So a high neshama is very connected to other souls. You know, like, so a very high neshama just knows that somebody's crying over there instinctually. You know, the Rishon Rebbe said, this is amazing. The Rishon Rebbe said that if you don't feel the pain of a woman in labor in a radius of 300 kilometers, you're not a Rebbe. you have no business being a Rebbe. If you don't feel the pain of another person in a radius of 300 kilometers, we barely feel the presence of the person sitting next to us, Okay.
Does one work on this, or is that innate with somebody? Like, I've been thinking about this after, how does one connect the supernal with the mundane?
One of the beautiful things about Michal is that when we learn something, Michal actually thinks about it in a serious way, and that's very much appreciated.
Have you been
Huh?
He didn't know. I've been like Tuesday nights. I go
Bless
to the community meeting where
Yeah.
have a row. So after people talk to him about various things. So I asked him this question. And he's alone.
So?
And he's a Rebbe, and I said, maybe.
And what did he say? He said he didn't know.
He knew what I was talking about.
So don't be surprised. You see, it's like this. I've shown you already more than once that magic eye book. You familiar with these nonsense? You have it here? It's like nonsense drawings. I don't know. Anyway, doesn't matter. And Beth, you familiar with it?
Yeah.
Yeah, you've seen it? Right, you couldn't do it. Right, you were sitting here practicing. You're looking at these things, and you got to let your eyes relax. And when your eyes relax and you're sort of like looking through the paper, all of a sudden you see a 3D image. It looks like you can put your hand into it. Okay? But the second that you think about it, it disappears. Okay? So the brain is a filter. Okay? If you were taught that such and such is a bunch of nonsense, then you accepted that, then you've shut off the possibility to relate with it. If somebody says that all these kinds of teachings are not reality because they don't make any sense scientifically, which means to say that science doesn't understand it, so you get a certain prejudice, and then you have to really teach your mind to open up to be able to see these things. But so to a certain extent, some people have an easier time with these kinds of things, and then everybody can develop it to a greater extent, some to a lesser extent. Remember, we were sitting here and learning. What was her name from Toronto?
Yes. She was sitting.
Where Sylvia is sitting.
Yeah.
And there was a woman here from Toronto. We were learning Reb Nachman, and we were talking about Reb Nachman says that if whatever you focus on the other person, if you're focusing on a good point in them, you're putting them into a good space. If you focus on something negative in them, you're putting them into a bad space, right? As if you're looking at the Nekudat Tovah in a person, you are putting them, just by the way you're looking at them, you're putting them into a good space. If you're looking at something negative, you're putting them into a bad space.
Without them even realizing that.
Yeah. Okay. And it sounds like you've got a remote control in your eyes, right? Sounds like magic. So, what was her name? That lady?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Good.
2:00 in the morning, we'll wake up.
Yeah, I will remember. Sephora, Marguerite, Faye. Anyway, I'll come back. Anyway.
That's right.
And
she phoned you.
Yeah, so I said, and you can even do this long distance. And she was like, and I said, let's do it right now. Think of somebody, and focus on something good in them and give them a blessing. She calls me up 6 o'clock in the evening, excited. She says, "You're not going to believe this. The person that I thought of when we were doing the class, there was bad vibes between them already for 2 years. They barely spoke to each other. They phoned her long distance. Hi, how are you? This and that. Okay. So it's you can learn these things. In any case, so let's get back to what we're talking about. So Reb Shlomo says that the children are coming down. Mr. Guy, yeah, be in touch. So he says that the children are coming down during the time of the Bedekim. The children are coming and connecting with their mother. They're not here in this world. They haven't been born, right? But there's something happening already during the Bedekim. Kol kisui pnei hakala hu kesher shel mala. The whole thing of the covering of the Kala's face is all about connecting with above. It's even higher than the chuppah itself. Because the chuppah is the bond, the contract, the ceremony of contract between the chosin and the kala in this world. And the covering of the face of the bride is the connection in a supernal realm. You wanted to say something?
One left the clause now. What we were discussing earlier on about the visions and things, does that relate to spiritualism?
Yes. But
Is that halakhic spiritualism?
What do you mean?
Well, it's halakhic spiritualism.
Is it halakhic? Is spirituality halakhic?
Well, spiritualism, as we know, is practiced in the world.
Well, wait a minute. That's a very broad question.
Yes.
No, some spiritual practices are not kosher, and some are.
Some within Yiddishkeit.
Some, yeah, of course there are.
I'm not talking about
No, in Yiddishkeit, yeah, there are spiritual practices. Yeah, but I mean, we try to live a spiritual life too. That's what Hasidus is about, Kabbalah and so on. Yeah. You know, but the experience of spirituality doesn't prove anything. You know, like I've met people that they come out of an ashram and they say they never had such a spiritual experience in a shul. But that doesn't make it kosher. You know, you can eat non-kosher food, you're also going to be filled. It's going to fill your stomach, right? We human beings can experience spirituality, whether it's kosher spirituality or whether it's not. You can experience spirituality. Judaism is more about doing. In other words, whether somebody comes and asks for some tzedakah, whether you're having a spiritual experience giving it, or whether you're not having a spiritual experience giving it, give it, all right? On Pesach, whether you're having a spiritual experience eating matzah, or whether you're not having a spiritual experience eating matzah, you have to eat matzah. Understand? That's, if you can have a spiritual experience while you're doing it, and it's going to help you be a better Jew, so then kol hakavod.
So in order to experience the connection between the Mala and Mata, one has to believe that it's possible.
For sure, you have to believe that it's possible. If you don't, if you're going to go with the basis of anything that you can't see doesn't exist, you already filtered it out, and you can't experience it. But don't worry about that so much. It's like that's a gift already. You understand? And that's not the issue, and that's not the issue in life. But it's important to respect it. For example, you make Kiddush on Shabbos, right? You feel something different on Shabbos. So practically speaking, we put on clothing, special clothing for Shabbos. We clean up the house. We put a tablecloth on. We set the table. We light candles. We have special foods, etc., etc. Right? But that's all in honor of Shabbos. And the fact is that you go to shul and you start davening. You feel different on Shabbos.
For
Right.
what we do on a normal basis, that's what makes us grow in a spiritual practice.
That's
Like, it
that's
just comes
what
along
makes
with
you
what we're doing on a
right.
day-to-day thing.
But you can go and rent a cave in Tekoa, and we'll get some birds to fly in, some food and things like that, and you can sit and meditate all day, and you will have spiritual practices. I mean experiences. You know, I met this Yid who told me that he only meditates on putting on tefillin, but he doesn't actually put them on. And he says to me that he goes higher with his meditation than I go with than me putting them on. And I said to him, I'm not arguing with you. I don't think that you're telling me something that isn't true. You could have a very much higher experience, but practically speaking, the mitzvah is to actually put on the tefillin. If you can do it and have a beautiful spiritual experience, that's wonderful. But practically speaking, putting on the tefillin is to bind the heart to God, and on the head to bind the mind to God. Right? It means that it's just like lahavdil. You know, you hitch a horse up to the wagon, putting on the tefillin in a certain sense is hitching yourself up to God. It's like God told me to put this on, and this means that my heart and mind have to be serving Hashem.
So, am I thinking correctly? What you're saying, you're bringing physicality into spirituality.
You bring the spirituality into physicality, and physicality, heaven is being brought down to earth, and earth is being brought up to heaven.
In the normal course of events, I'm talking about the normal people here.
And is anybody here? Everybody who's normal, raise your. Go on.
My definition of normal is the way I do things.
Ah. Go
How
on.
will I know that I've connected the points? Like, do I feel something? Am I transcendental or something like that? How do I know that I've accomplished it?
If you're going to worry about it and you're going to watch yourself the whole time, you're not going to experience it.
This is why we have to
Just don't worry about it. When it'll happen, it'll happen.
be present.
Yeah.
Either way.
What are you saying?
Isn't that why we're given mitzvahs? Because that is what enables us to connect, and from there.
That's but the word mitzvah itself, the generic root of the word mitzvah, besides meaning commandment, it also means connection. The mitzvah is the connection with Hashem.
If you're seeking after an experience, then I think, especially if you're seeking a spiritual experience, it's very low. It's like I want something. Like I want an
She's awesome.
experience. So
You're looking about you're concerned about yourself.
yeah.
It's self-centered. Yeah.
Okay.
You hear that gut gesagt. So don't worry about it.
Not that I'm worried about it. I'm taking this particular part of
Yeah. Okay, so
and I want to be connected.
So Shlomo told us the other day we were learning the clearest indication that you're connected above is that you're loving every one of your brothers and sisters.
I'll tell you what, it's like you say every class. I remember when it was, if I was back then, yeah, in 10 years from now, you'll look back and you'll say, wow, I grew spiritually. I didn't even notice, but it happened.
Very good.
If
Also,
you focus on it, you won't see
see,
it.
the young people have good things to say here.
It's
Very good. Very good. Very good.
trippy eye picture book.
Yeah. Okay, let's go. So we're at the bottom of 187. She says, מדוע העולם אינו עושה דבר בקשר לכך? So why doesn't the world pay more attention to the badekin? Badekin is the Yiddish word for covering the face of the bride. So he says, כי הם לא קשורים למעלה, because people are not connected to above, והם לא יכולים לסבול את זה, and people can't tolerate that. את הדבר הזה הם לא רוצים, they don't want that, לא סובלים, they don't tolerate it. Page 188, right? לכן הם עושים את עצמם כאילו הוא לא קיים. So it's uncomfortable. So for a lot of people, so therefore they pretend as if it doesn't exist. כל דבר שאני לא רוצה לעשות, anything that I don't want to do, אני צוחק, I make fun of it. ראיתם איך אנשים צוחקים בהלוויות? Did you ever see how people laugh at funerals? Why? מדוע? Why? כי הם לא יודעים איך לבכות, because they don't know how to cry. So מה עושים? So what do you do when you don't know how to cry? צוחקים. אבל מין צחוק ששובר את הלב, but it's laughter that breaks the heart. Right? People, Reb Shlomo once said, he said, people don't know how to laugh and people don't know how to cry. מדוע אנשים יושבים בזמן כיסוי פני כלה ואוכלים? Why are people sitting and eating during... I'm telling you, I was at this wedding, and finally the guy with the microphone announces, the kala is here, the chosin is here, the musicians are here, the rabbi is here, and the photographer is here, so we can do the chuppah.
Yeah.
You know, and because a lot of people, it's hard for them to relate to these things, so they prefer to act as if it's not reality. מדוע אנשים יושבים בזמן כיסוי פני כלה ואוכלים? Why are people sitting and eating while the bedekin is taking place and they're not paying attention? כי הם מפחדים להסתכל בעצמם ולומר, they're afraid to look at themselves and admit, גוואלד, אני לא קשור. Wow, I'm not really connected. גוואלד, גם אני צריך את זה. Wow, I really need this connection as well. גוואלד, אני צריך קשר קטן עם מעלה. I need a little bit of a connection with the above. So לכן הם אומרים, so therefore they prefer to say, אעשה את עצמי כאילו זה לא קיים. I'm going to pretend as if it doesn't exist. As if it's not reality. That's, you know, and a good friend of ours, Reb Shlomo, there's a picture of him on a little table, if you want to get it here, with somebody from a Fabrengen, somebody whistling, standing behind the Rebbe. You'll see it, it's lying flat, I think, on top of his form, on the table, no, not on the bookshelf. It's lying there, on top of his Chumash set, or on top of the Chumash set, right where you are, on the table. See a photograph there? Is there no photograph there? Yeah.
I was his granddaughter's counselor. She
Yeah?
was here for a gap year. Her family was just here. They just left.
So this is a picture from a Fabrengen with the Lubavitcher Rebbe. And standing behind him, just a month ago, was his yahrzeit, Mayor of Sarah. And he was a relative of Abu Chatzera. And at one Fabrengen, the Rebbe turns around to him and tells him to start whistling. And by Sfardim, like whistling was like a no-no. Anyway, this man and his wife, I told you stories about him. This man and his wife, I know people would come to his house for a cup of tea and he would be there for 6 months. They never asked anybody to leave. He lived in a lot of places. He lived here too. He used to have these... Huh?
She's looking for a combination.
Yeah. And he used to People used to have these Meleva Malkis, once a Shabbos, that would go until Sunday morning, okay? Musicians would come and everybody, all kinds of people would come. Now let me ask you a question. You think all these people, like, you go to somebody's house and you think you're going to be there for 15 minutes and you don't leave for 2 weeks and for 6 months just because they didn't ask you to leave? But why are you staying so long? I took a woman who in Montreal. I took her to his house. She said to me she had it with Yiddishkeit. She's going off to Kingston, Jamaica. There's this other group over there that she's going to join them, and I couldn't convince her to do anything differently. So I said, you know what? We're on the way to the airport. I said, let's stop in, and I want you to meet Mayor Rabbi Sarah. She was there for 2 weeks. She didn't get on the plane. She was there for 2 weeks. She stayed in their house for 2 weeks. They fed her and everything. Why would anybody, did you ever stay in somebody's house for 2 weeks when you went just for a cup of tea?
Depends on the situation. When I was
Did you-
homeless, yeah.
But if you're homeless, right? But seriously, think about it. Did you ever do that? No, too polite, huh? Did you ever, you, no, yes, no. What would make you do that?
Because you got no
Because
place
you
else.
feel that.
No, you
Give me
have,
something,
no.
No, you feel
You've given me
that.
a lot.
All of a sudden, like, you know,
So-
you're experiencing something that is so that you haven't you're in the presence of people who are mamish connected. Why do you think they didn't tell anybody to leave? You think because they didn't have the guts to tell somebody to leave? They're paying for the food. They even gave up their sleeping places. Okay. And because when you're really, really connected, and the people would come into their house and they'd say, "Ah, this is something altogether different."
So you feel embraced.
You feel embraced. Now, at the same time, I want to tell you, you do have to know that everything holy has an opposite unholy side too. So if you're familiar with the way cults operate, cults use love in a very negative way. They call it love bombing. They bomb you with love and they break down your resistance through love bombing, and then they make you dependent on it. Okay? And then you snap in and you become a slave to them. So just because somebody's like loving and embracing, there's one woman that dragged her daughter here to a Jews for Jesus place. And I'm talking to the girl afterwards. I said, "What was it like?" She says, "Oh, they were very nice, but there was one woman that was really mean to me." So I said, "Stop right there and I'll tell you what happened. You came in there, somebody was nasty to you, and then everybody came around and they hugged you. They made a circle around you and they hugged you for 45 minutes straight." And she says, "Yeah, how did you know?" Because it's a technique that you can, you know what I mean? Like, you attack, somebody comes, you come in there, somebody attacks you, you feel terribly vulnerable, and then everybody comes over and says, "Oh, don't pay attention to her, we love you, we love you, we love you." That's not what Meir Rabbi Sarah was doing. Chas v'sholem. No, if that's what goes on, be wise and walk out. Okay, that's already manipulative. You don't need to smother the person with love for the person to feel loved and exalted. Okay. So, but people are generally not comfortable with that. And did you see this video? I saw it on YouTube. This guy gets onto a train. I think it's in France, and he starts laughing out loud, and he's laughing, and it's like a longer train ride. Did you see it?
And then everyone started.
And everybody's like, what's wrong with this guy? What's wrong with this guy? But he keeps on laughing, keeps on laughing, and then so other people start laughing, and within 4 or 5 minutes, the whole car is laughing like crazy. It's awesome, huh?
Contagious.
It's contagious, yeah. It's contagious. Okay. In any case, page 189. Britim Hashem, covenant with God. So just before we start reading on, what we're basically saying is that doing something is one thing, feeling connected is another thing. Okay? And you can be doing, and just because you're doing doesn't mean that you feel connected, right? You can be doing, you can be like a robot. There are people that function like robots, like, like you can tell what time it is by looking at what they're doing right now. Like every day they're like so scheduled. So the problem that we're aware of during this time of year that we're mourning the destruction of the temple is what it's about is to get in touch with the pain of not being connected. To think about, like, am I doing things in a way that is connected, or am I just doing things? Now, and the deepest connection that we used to have was with the Beit HaMikdash, because the whole thing about the Beit HaMikdash was that it was the dwelling place of the Shekhinah. In other words, if the Gemara says, if somebody in Eretz Yisrael said, "Wow, there's a God," everybody would look at him and they'd say, "Oh, good morning." Right? But, or if somebody would say, "Chas v'sholom," that there isn't a God, they'd say, like, "What's the matter with you?" It was just so obvious that Hashem is present until it was taken away, until we drove Hashem away.
I know my English not fixing the answer, but if there was that clarity in base English, how is it that we don't sin? Like, I don't understand.
Because
Stop missing it.
you no, she's asking if it was so clear, then how come we messed up? So one like, if you're familiar with Chazon Yeshayahu, the first chapter in the Navi, right? What we read the Shabbos Chazon. But what's happening is that people would do a transgression. They'd come to the Beit HaMikdash, bring their sin offering, and they'd come out feeling like totally cleansed and new. So then the Yetzer Hara would come to the person and say, look at that. You can go and do the sin, then go to the Beit HaMikdash, bring your sacrifice, and you'll be restored and you'll be new. So we started abusing the specialness of the Beit HaMikdash. Understand? Just like in a marriage, like, like husband and wife are so good and kind to each other, and then somebody does something wrong and they're forgiven, and then the person says, that wasn't so bad. I had my fun and I was forgiven.
So basically, when the Beis HaMikdash was around,
Speak up.
When the Beis HaMikdash was around, the Yetzer Hara was very strong. It's just that we were able to have a clarity. There was a clarity that we were able to achieve, which we can't have now, but the Yetzer Hara was no less.
Yeah, definitely. But like, the Talmud says that the second Beit HaMikdash was destroyed because of sinat chinam, baseless hatred. You know what baseless hatred means? It doesn't mean that you actually hate the person. It means that even just not appreciating their existence is baseless hatred.
So you deny their existence.
Baseless sinat chinam is in its delicate form is simply not appreciating the existence of another person.
So not appreciating their soul is what you're saying. They have a soul just like you.
Yeah. But just like, the attitude of like, I could live without you. I don't need you.
It's acknowledging the presence of the other person.
it's not. I said you can acknowledge them, but I said not appreciating their being here.
Like indifference.
It's like it's like.
But then you'll treat them badly if you don't appreciate their existence.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that when the Talmud says sinat chinam, it doesn't necessarily mean that people were walking around and saying I hate you. Just
Who was walking by you and not saying anything,
walking by you and
as if you weren't.
As if you don't exist.
as if you don't exist.
So if you see somebody
So-
dying, you walk past
In a sense, what Hashem was telling us is that it's like, what do you call it? If a parent is going to visit his children, right? And if the children are like hating each other, how long do you think the father and the mother are going to stay in the house?
exactly.
So some people were doing some pretty vulgar things. I mean, if you read the description in Yeshayahu, like first chapter of Isaiah, which is, by the way, one of the lines there, which Shakespeare plagiarized, and he says, he's speaking in God's name, and he says, and when you spread your hands in prayer, I cover my eyes not to see because your hands are full of blood. Which play?
Good.
With breath.
Would not.
That's because you went to regular school instead of to informal school. You never read Macbeth? Okay, good.
Other Shakespeare plays.
Right? In any case, so it got to such a point that, like Hashem was saying, I can't stand you coming to my Beit HaMikdash. And it was all because of the way we were treating each other.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you say Damim Maleu, your hands are full of blood, doesn't mean that you yourself went and spilled blood. It could be that you were standing by and hearing how somebody is being insulted, and you didn't do anything about it.
Do anything as you see these.
Remember, I once shared with you that Reb Shlomo taught us. Here, can you manage to visualize yourself standing at Mount Sinai for a minute at the time that the Torah is about to be given? Come on, you're from Colorado. Come on, you can do it.
Role play.
Okay, you're there. Good. Somebody tugs you on the sleeve and says, "Excuse me, do you think that God is going to tell us it's forbidden to commit murder?" What are you going to tell that person? It's not just probably like what's wrong with you? Are you here or you're not here, right? Like if you're standing at Mount Sinai, you need to be told don't commit murder. Don't you already know that just by being there? You already know that, right? So why did Hashem have to tell us don't commit murder?
The question was before the Ten Commandments or after?
Before.
Before, and you knew about the Ten
Yeah,
Commandments?
can you imagine, you're in the presence, that the Shekhinah is coming down. You're in this great presence,
It's permeating your whole
it's
body.
already, So the Zohar says that on the street level, we heard when God said, "Lo tirtzach," don't commit murder. We heard, don't go and physically commit murder. On a higher level, we heard, don't embarrass anyone in public, which is also considered a form of murder. On a higher level, we heard, don't take your anger out on anyone. And on the highest level, we heard, don't even ignore anyone. And these are all different levels of murder. So when the Navi says, when you lift your hands in prayer and your hands are full of blood, it doesn't mean that, that you were playing Lady Macbeth and that you actually committed a physical murder. Even if you didn't commit a physical murder, if you insulted somebody or if you're ignoring, depending on what level you're at.
You
You
did your
understand?
sacrifice, and now you're ready to do
So-
it again. And
so-
give your sacrifice
So
again
that's
next week.
so Hashem said, I'm not playing this game anymore.
So why is the way that you're treating another person so high up in your connection with Hashem?
It's not just that it's so high up. It's what do you call it? It's like a prerequisite in relating to God.
It's a prerequisite.
In other words, you can fool you can be a holy person and do all kinds of spiritual practices, but if you're not a decent person, you're fooling yourself.
You're what?
You're fooling
So
yourself.
that's the most important, how you relate to each other.
That's right.
And also, when you relate to somebody else in any situation, it's a relationship that you're having directly with God.
And you're relating to God through your relationship with
With
someone
right.
else.
others.
But if you're not a mensch, it's not a relationship with God. Okay, so Zara, it's your birthday. So besides, of course, we wish you the best. But Rebbe said that on your birthday, on one's birthday, you have special gifts, heavenly gifts, and among them is the gift of giving blessings. So please give everyone a blessing. You can do it individually, or you can just do it as a group. But you have a special power to give blessings today. You should be giving blessings all day.
Okay. My blessing here, first of all, is for you, Rabbi. I bless you for being here to teach us such wonderful things and impart not only your knowledge but your spirit. To my partner, I bless you also for any gratitude for coming to Israel at this time, not only for a family wedding, but for some healing for us as well. And the rest of you, all these wonderful young people here, and I include that gentleman at the end as well, who's also young at heart. I bless you all that you find what is meaningful in your lives and move ahead with lots of love, good health, and everything.
Amen.
Results.
Simon Tov, Mazel Tov, Simon Tov, Mazel Tov, Simon Tov, Mazel Tov, Yedanu. Simon Tov, Mazel Tov, Simon Tov, Mazel Tov, Simon Tov, Mazel Tov, Yedanu. Chod Yisrael, Yedanu Chod Yisrael, Amen. Yedanu Chod Yisrael, Yedanu Chod Yisrael, See you tomorrow, Mr. Shem, yeah? Actually, there's also a Parsha class tonight at 8:30.